Well, fancy meeting you here, Mr. Griffith.
Well, Mr. Saul, it's been too long. Join me in a drink?
Lovely. I'll have myself a Canadian whiskey. A true Canadian drink.
A true Canadian drink, eh? What makes something truly Canadian?
Well, to begin, we are a Métis civilization. Our true Canadian roots are aboriginally based. Our society today derives all from Aboriginal history.
Aboriginal, you say? I'm Canadian, not Aboriginal. I think a fair share of other Canadians would say the same thing. In order to be a Métis civilization is to assume we all come from Canadian roots. I'm sorry to say, but Canada is a diverse, multicultural country with no true identity.
Griffith, you are being blinded by the myth-makers of the British Empire. Our diversity comes from our idea of an inclusive circle that expands and gradually adapts as new people join us. This comes straight from Aboriginal culture.
Saul, again you assume that those who migrate to Canada adapt to our culture, subconsciously taking on Aboriginal roots, yet, not all immigrants do so. Actually, writer Yann Martel said himself that Canada was just one nice hotel. From this statement, you must realize that not all who migrate here feel connected to our roots.
We are all Aboriginal. I don't mean in any legal sense. We do not struggle with the challenges of living in a diverse society because we gained a talent that stems from Aboriginal inheritance. 20th century immigrants learn this custom. That is why Canada can work so well at being diverse.
Saul, you are living in the past. There is no longer a one-size-fits-all national culture. With our high levels of emigration, we are a society of minorities and regions. A strong national identity from a broadly shared historical memory is no longer a liability.
Our views on immigration are clearly different, but what about the government? Surely you must believe that the British Empire and our monolithic view is the reason Canada has no true identity.
Although the government is to blame for much of the historical misunderstandings with identity, I believe it to be a civic duty to engage in this country's culture. We must engage in Canadian politics. There is a general decline in trust in the government. This decline contributes to Canada's decline of self-identification.
Griffith, our government has rewritten history. How are Canadians responsible for self-identity when our mythology has gone to strip away this reality of who Canadians are? Ideas of racial purity and European inheritance begin to throw society into denial of our past in the last 19th century.
You keep putting blame on the British empires and governments, but the incline in self-identity in small communities is ruining Canada's identity as a whole. Canadians are not satisfying the universal bond of belonging to something larger than themselves. With no government participation, there is no common bond of nationhood.
How can a common bond exist when we see our country through the eyes of Victorian description? Many of our difficulties today come from the persistence of the Victorian description of Canada's past. They did not give us the ability to paint our own paintings, write our own books. Our reality of our past was erased.
Saul, it is our civic obligation to recognize the diverse components that make up Canada. The past is in the past. We need to focus on maintaining a common set of civic touchstones that help define who we are. As the country becomes more diverse and increasingly regionalized, citizens must sustain a national self-awareness. Something like a minimal level of knowledge about the larger civic institutions and about each other.
The First Nations are the senior founding pillar of our civilization. That is the truth of our past, and I believe our future is striving for diversity and inclusion, two things that bring us back to the attitudes of our deep historic roots. First Nations and Europeans experienced diversity and inclusion, and I believe it has been unconsciously carried through the centuries.
I think we both want the same thing, Saul. For citizens to embrace a Canadian identity, yet the way to get there are very different paths according to our views. Who we are as Canadians will not be settled between us and this bar, so let's just head out.
Agreed. Oh look, here is my son. He is marrying his longtime girlfriend this weekend. She is a doctor, and comes from a very wealthy family. You could say he's going native.
But Saul, he's marrying up, she is an upgrade. No.
Exactly, like I said, he's going native. Just an expression of the past.
You leave me confused with your reference, but congrats on the wedding. Let's get out of here.